It's just more confirmation of the corruption behind the 2020 election. We talked about the Biden corruption and how the left was desperate. So desperate that they were willing to rig an election in order to keep the American people from knowing the truth about Biden corruption. And of course, lying about and dissembling about its involvement in rigging the election. Well, we already know how the deep state, FBI, and other agencies laid the groundwork in causing Twitter and other media companies or big tech companies to suppress and censor the New York Post story, explosive New York Post story that exposed the international money laundering operation implicating Joe Biden directly. And the Hunter laptop story. And of course, that's one way to rig an election, which is to suppress negative content for a candidate you support, while similarly punishing and censoring a candidate you don't support. And that's what happened in 2020. That's a fact. And now we know that that censorship wasn't just the deep state doing what the deep state does, which is targeting Trump. It was also specifically at the behest of the Biden operation. And we have that as a result of an investigation by Jim Jordan and Mike Turner of the Intelligence Committee. Jim Jordan is chairman of the Committee on the Judiciary, and Mike Turner is chairman of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. A major step up from people like Adam Schiff, I can tell you that. And they have a letter implicating the Biden campaign in this suppression of content about Joe Biden and abuse of authority by those 50 former, quote, intelligence officials who falsely suggested the Hunter Biden laptop operation was a Russia disinformation campaign. Again, providing further pretext for big tech and big media to suppress this on behalf of Joe Biden. And this corruption is something well worth going into detail. This letter detailed April 20th, 2023, signed by Congressman Jordan and Congressman Turner, was sent to Antony Blinken, who was the Secretary of State for the Biden administration, Joe Biden. The letter reads, "The Committee on the Judiciary and the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence are conducting oversight of federal law enforcement intelligence matters within our respective jurisdictions. We are examining the origins of the infamous public statement signed by 51 former intelligence officials that falsely discredited a New York Post story regarding Hunter Biden's laptop as supposed Russian disinformation. As part of our oversight, we have learned that you played a role in the inception of this statement while serving as a Biden campaign advisor, and we therefore request your assistance with our oversight." On October 14, 2020, the New York Post published a report detailing how Hunter Biden used the position and influence of his father, now President Joe Biden, for personal gain with the apparent awareness of President Biden. The article reported on several emails found on a laptop belonging to Hunter Biden that he had abandoned in a Delaware computer shop. The contents of the emails cast doubt on President Biden's previous denials of speaking to his son about international business dealings. Within 5 days of the article, on October 19, 2020, 51 former intelligence officials released a public statement attempting to discredit the contents of the New York Post reporting about Hunter Biden, stating that the story has all the classic earmarks of a Russian intelligence operation. News publications immediately ran with the statement, with Politico publishing a story with the conclusive headline, "Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation," dozens of former officials say. Social media companies simultaneously restricted access to the Post story, including Twitter locking out the Post and then White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany's accounts for sharing a link to the article. During the final presidential debate on October 22nd, then Vice President Biden cited the public statement to rebut President Trump's criticism of the Biden family business dealings, saying, "Look, there are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what this accusing me of is a Russian plan. They said this has all the characteristics. 4 or 5 former heads of the CIA, both parties say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except him and his good friend Rudy Giuliani." That was my Biden imitation. It's probably pretty weak, but it's the best I could come up with on short notice. Subsequent reporting revealed that the New York Post story was not, as the public statement claimed, and Biden parroted, part of a Russian information operation. This revelation, nearly 2 years after the fact, however, was little consolation. The concealed efforts, or concerted efforts, to dismiss the serious allegations in the Post reporting and to suppress any discussion of the story played a substantial role in the 2020 election. The committee recently conducted a transcribed interview with Mike Morell, a former deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency and one of the 51 signatories on the public statement. By the way, we've run into Morell before. He was one of those Obama officials. As I said here, he was a top CIA official under Obama who was involved in the Benghazi cover-up. Judicial Watch uncovered that, by the way. In his transcribed interview, Morell testified that on or around October 17th, 2020, you, Secretary Blinken, reached out to him to discuss the Hunter Biden laptop story. At the same time, you served as a senior advisor to the Biden campaign, Blinken. According to Morell, although your outreach was couched as simply gathering Morell's reaction to the story, it set in motion the events that led to the issuance of the false public statement. Morell testified, question to Morell, but prior to Secretary Blinken's call, you did not have any intent to write this statement. Answer, I did not. Okay, so his call triggered. Answer, yes, it did. It did, yes. That intent in you, yes, absolutely. That same day, you emailed Morell an article published in USA Today alleging that the FBI was examining whether the Hunter Biden laptop was part of a, quote, disinformation campaign, unquote. And that was the FBI dishonesty to try to help Joe Biden, stories like that. The very bottom of the email you sent to Morell included the signature block of Andrew Bates, the then director of rapid response to the Biden campaign, or for the Biden campaign. So Blinken was up to his neck in trying to suppress the Biden laptop story. Morell testified that his communication with you was one of the few communications he had with the Biden campaign, explaining that he also received a call from Steve Ricchetti, chairman of the Biden campaign, following the the October 22nd debate, to thank him for writing a statement. And this is what Morell said about that. After the debate, I think it was after the debate. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was. I got a phone call from Jeremy Bash, who I work with at Beacon and who is active politically. And Jeremy said, do you have a minute to talk to Steve Ricchetti? I said, of course. He was the head of the Biden campaign at the time, and Jeremy got him on the line, and Steve thanked me for putting the statement out, and that was the extent of the conversation. Morell also explained that the Biden campaign helped to strategize about the public release of the statement. Morell testified that he sent an email telling Nick Shapiro, former deputy chief of staff and senior advisor to the director of the CIA, John Brennan, that the Biden campaign wanted the statement to go to a particular reporter at the Washington Post first, and then he should send the statement to the campaign when he sent the letter to the reporter. Morell testified, however, he did not recall why he told Shapiro the campaign wanted the statement to go to this reporter first, and admitted that he may have spoken to the campaign on another occasion. Morell testified that one of his two goals in releasing the statement was to help then Vice President Biden in the debate and to assist him in winning the election. He testified, what was the intent of the statement? Well, there were two intents. One intent was to share our concern with the American people that the Russians were playing on this issue, and that two, it was to help Vice President Biden. You wanted to help Vice President Biden? Why? Because I wanted them to win the election. You wanted him to win, that's why? Yes, sir. So it goes on and on. So what happened is that Jordan and Turner, because of Morell's testimony, want Blinken to turn over any records he has about this corruption. Why is Congress interested in this? Because frankly, they should be impeaching Biden, but specifically because you had all these folks with national security clearances working with the campaign to interfere in an election with a false statement that was designed specifically by their own admission to help Biden in a debate, and was created as a result specifically of a campaign request out of Joe Biden's operation. So, it's just more confirmation of the corruption behind the 2020 election. I mean, I know there are all these debates about voter fraud and all of that, But when you want to look to see how, elections get messed with, this is how it happens. And you're victimized because you're denied access to information that could change the outcome of the election, change your vote. You have a right to the information as an American citizen, and the government and, quote, former government officials and big tech companies working with the government and these former government officials and the dishonest media shouldn't interfere with your rights in that regard. Morally, ethically, legally, constitutionally. You pick. So this is another example why this corruption is so serious, because we have a man, a Secretary of State, who was willing to be dishonest about something that's very serious in terms of national security, the likelihood that the incoming president and then candidate for president was on the take from foreign leaders and had been compromised by his family's business dealings, and Biden knew about it all and was benefiting from it. And Blinken's still there. And do you think foreign leaders don't know about this and aren't calculating it when they make their decisions, both with Blinken and with respect to Joe Biden himself? I said it once and I'll say it again, it bears repeating. You can bet the leaders of China and Russia, both of whom have compromised Joe Biden through financial dealings and favors for him, certainly have calculated and incorporated their knowledge of Biden's corruption in their decision making, right? So if they're thinking whether should I invade Ukraine, they look to see, oh, well, Biden's on the take. He's on the take for me if you're Putin. So, maybe I'll do it in a situation I otherwise wouldn't do if he wasn't similarly compromised or corrupt. Same thing with China. Are they being more aggressive, sending balloons into the United States? Recently, we had literally an alt government set up in New York City, a Chinese police station being used to target Chinese nationals here in the United States. Do you think they would have been as aggressive or would be as aggressive if they didn't understand Biden to be on the take, again, from them in this case? Of course. And now our Secretary of State similarly compromised. Our national security, our country's position in the world, has been compromised and corrupted by Joe Biden's corruption and the corruption of those around him, like Antony Blinken. Messrs. Jordan and Turner of Congress and any other honest congressman and senator need to do what they can to address this corruption. And you can be sure that Judicial Watch will continue its FOIA work on this. We've exposed Hunter Biden's corruption. We've exposed Joe Biden's corruption on these issues with Russia and Ukraine. We have ongoing litigation on these issues, and more is coming because I'm glad Congress is doing this. And what I like about this letter that they sent out to Blinken and about what they've uncovered from Morell's testimony, it used to be the Republicans, when they were doing investigations like this, wouldn't release this material in a timely way. They'd sit on it. I mean, we know this has happened. We saw this in the past. And what I like about what Jordan Turner did here is that, they found the information and they released it quickly. So that's good for the public interest. And do they need to be doing more? Of course, everyone needs to be doing more. But they are doing more than used to be done. So, I'm often critical of Congress, but when they do the right thing, we should tell them they're doing the right thing. And kudos to Jordan and Turner for being on the ball and getting this information out and exposing this corruption as quickly as they're doing. Now, impeachment's next, right? We'll see what happens there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.